Welcome to another deep dive with us.
Always fun to explore a new topic.
Today we're going to be looking at Krishnamurti and the psychological revolution.
By Fritz Walter.
Yeah. And actually one of the things that really stood out to me when I was preparing for this was the fact that the author actually personally knew some of the people in Krishnamurti's circle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and even Princess Rafaela of Liechtenstein.
Really?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It kind of gives it a personal touch.
Yeah, you get to see a little bit more of the human side.
Exactly.
Behind the curtain.
So our mission today is to try to explore some of Krishnamurti's most powerful ideas, and we're going to be talking about psychological fear.
Oh, okay.
What makes up our consciousness,
Okay.
and this idea of emptying consciousness. Now that one, to be honest, I'm a little bit puzzled by that.
Yeah.
Can we really empty our minds?
That's a big question.
What does that even mean?
That's a question that is really at the heart of a lot of Krishnamurti's teachings. It's not about literally erasing all of our memories, but it's more about understanding how our past shapes our present.
Right.
And how to detach from the emotional baggage that we've been carrying around.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes something will happen and you have a reaction that's totally out of proportion.
Right.
You think, where did that come from?
Exactly.
That's exactly the type of conditioning
Yeah.
that he's trying to help us break free from.
Yep.
So before we dive too deep into all of that, let's just start with a little background on Krishnamurti himself.
Okay.
Because I feel like his name gets thrown around a lot, but honestly, my knowledge is a little bit fuzzy.
So he actually had a fascinating life.
Okay.
He was raised within the Theosophical Society,
Okay.
almost like he was groomed for spiritual leadership.
Uh-huh.
But then he rejected it all.
Oh, wow.
He disbanded the Order of the Star
Wow.
because he felt that enlightenment couldn't be found through any organization or set dogma.
Wow. That's a bold move.
It-
He's like, I'm going my own way?
Absolutely, yeah. He emphasized personal experience and direct perception
Okay.
over any kind of ritual or belief system.
So really an individual journey.
Totally an individual journey. And what's really interesting is that he never aligned himself with any specific nationality or culture.
Yeah. He was kind of a citizen of the world.
Exactly. He had a truly cosmopolitan worldview, and that's probably why his teachings resonate with so many people from all walks of life.
I can see that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive into one of his core concepts then, and that is psychological fear.
Okay.
And I'm assuming this isn't like being scared of spiders or, heights or something like that.
No, not quite.
Okay.
Krishnamurti makes a clear distinction between the fear we see in the animal world,
Okay.
which is a primal survival instinct,
Mm-hmm.
and the psychological fear that seems to haunt us as humans.
Okay.
He describes it as a pattern,
Okay.
like a memory stored deep inside of us
Mm-hmm.
that gets reactivated by thought.
Okay.
And then it creates this split between the world as we think it should be and the reality that we're experiencing.
Ah, that split, that's where the trouble starts.
Yes.
Because we get so attached to our ideals and how we think things ought to be.
Totally.
And then reality comes crashing in, and then that's where the fear takes root.
You got it.
Okay.
That's it, precisely. And this fear, he argued, is at the root of so much conflict and suffering.
Right.
It breeds insecurity,
Yeah.
aggression, even violence and intolerance.
It's like this chain reaction.
It is.
Fear leads to more fear, which leads to more fear.
And so on.
And it keeps escalating.
Exactly.
And it makes you wonder, like, if that fear is learned, can it also be unlearned?
That's a great question, and that is something that we're going to explore as we go deeper.
Okay.
But to understand how to overcome fear, we need to first understand what he calls the content of consciousness.
Okay, content of consciousness.
Yeah, what is that? So think of it as everything that has been imprinted on our minds from the past. All of those experiences, memories, beliefs,
Okay.
cultural influences.
So not just our own personal memories, but it's also stuff we've inherited from our families, our culture, even humanity as a whole.
Precisely. He saw it as this blend of individual and collective elements,
Okay.
like this mosaic that colors how we perceive the world.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he contrasted this with Freud's idea of a split between the conscious and subconscious mind.
Right.
He believed that this fragmentation is actually a result of conditioning,
Okay.
not our natural state.
So he's saying that deep down, we're whole, not divided.
That's the idea.
And it's just society and, our upbringing, all these things that create these internal walls.
Exactly. Now, to illustrate how these individual and collective experiences, even those that we might not be consciously aware of, can have a profound impact.
Okay.
Let's consider two very different figures.
Okay.
Adolf Hitler
Okay.
and Pablo Picasso.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a contrast.
Quite a contrast.
What do they have in common?
Both were deeply affected by what Carl Jung called archetypes
Okay.
from the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
These are these universal symbols and patterns that are embedded in our shared human history.
Like myths. Myths.
Legends,
Yeah.
those reoccurring themes that pop up across time
Exactly.
and cultures.
Yes, like the hero's journey or the wise old sage.
Right, we all kind of recognize those, even if we haven't studied them.
We do.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Hitler and Picasso, despite both being influenced by these really powerful archetypes,
Okay.
channeled them in completely different ways.
Right.
Hitler, driven by fear, distorted those symbols for his own destructive purposes.
Whereas Picasso, despite his own struggles,
Yes.
used them to create incredible art.
Exactly.
So it's not just the content of our consciousness,
Right.
but how we process it and how we express it.
That's exactly right. It highlights this crucial role of individual awareness.
Right.
Which brings us back to that concept of emptying consciousness of its content,
Good.
which might make a little more sense now that we've laid some of this groundwork. Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see the bigger picture, but I still have some questions.
Of course.
Like, how do we actually empty our minds without losing our sense of self?
Yeah.
Is that even possible?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
And this is a concept that requires a deep dive into the nature of thought itself.
All right, well, let's dive in.
And that is precisely where we will pick up in part 2 of our exploration. Welcome back.
Okay, so we left off talking about how powerful those unconscious influences can be.
Yeah.
From personal memories to those shared collective archetypes.
Right.
But how do we actually start to detach from all of that baggage?
Well, this is where understanding the nature of thought itself becomes so crucial.
Okay.
And Krishnamurti had some pretty radical ideas about thought.
How so?
Well, he saw it as a double-edged sword.
Okay.
On the one hand, it's essential.
Uh-huh.
We need it to function in the world,
To make decisions and...
to make decisions, communicate, all of that.
To survive.
But on the other hand, it can become this relentless cycle of rumination and worry,
Yeah, tell me about it.
keeping us trapped in the past.
Yes, my mind is like a hamster wheel, just going round and round with the same anxieties over and over again.
That's exactly what he was talking about.
It's exhausting.
It is. He argued that these repetitive thought patterns, often fueled by fear and conditioning, are what prevent us from truly experiencing reality as it is.
So it's like we're watching a movie of our lives.
Yes.
Instead of actually living them.
That is the great analogy.
Yeah.
And the key to breaking free from that cycle, according to Krishnamurti, is cultivating what he called total attention.
Total attention.
Yeah.
What does that involve?
Well, it's about developing this detached awareness of our thoughts,
Oh, okay.
noticing them as they arise without getting swept away by them. You're not judging them, not trying to push them away, but you're just observing them with this sense of spaciousness.
That reminds me of mindfulness practices.
Very much so.
Is it similar?
It is very similar because it's about recognizing that we are not our thoughts.
Okay.
There's a deeper awareness within us that can observe those thoughts without identifying with them.
Okay, I'm trying to picture this. So it's like instead of getting all tangled up in those anxious thoughts, I'm just noticing them like clouds passing by.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that space, that gap between the thought and our reaction to it,
Yeah.
that's where true freedom lies.
That makes sense. It's like creating some breathing room so we're not constantly reacting from a place of fear or anxiety.
Exactly.
But how do we actually cultivate this total attention? Like, is it something we can force or does it happen more organically?
Well, he believed that this state of awareness emerges naturally when we create the right conditions within ourselves.
What kind of conditions?
Well, it starts with a willingness to honestly observe ourselves,
Okay.
to face those uncomfortable thoughts and emotions without trying to push them away.
So creating a space of acceptance.
Yes, allowing those inner experiences to simply be.
Okay, so radical self-acceptance, not judging ourselves for having those thoughts or feelings in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of counterintuitive, but that acceptance is actually what creates the possibility for transformation.
So it's not about battling those negative thoughts, but rather acknowledging them and letting them pass through us without getting stuck.
Precisely shifting from that state of resistance to a state of flow.
It makes you wonder if we can cultivate this kind of inner peace, wouldn't that naturally lead to more peaceful relationships and interactions with others?
That's exactly what he believed.
Yeah.
He saw this inner transformation as the foundation for a more compassionate and just world.
Makes sense. If we're constantly at war within ourselves, it's bound to spill over into how we treat others
Absolutely.
and engage with the world around us.
He often spoke about the interconnectedness of all things,
Right.
how our individual actions and states of mind ripple outwards, impacting the collective.
So it's not just about personal growth then. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing that our individual well-being is intertwined with the well-being of everyone and everything around us.
That's a key point. Now, Walter highlights this idea of transforming thought.
Okay.
And it's not about eliminating thought altogether,
Right.
but rather changing our relationship with it.
So how do we transform thought?
Well, he encouraged us to become aware of the content of our thoughts,
Okay.
to examine those beliefs and assumptions that shape our perceptions and ultimately our reality.
So it's like questioning those ingrained stories we tell ourselves.
Yes.
The ones that might be limiting our potential.
Exactly. And as we become more aware, we can start to consciously choose more empowering thoughts.
Okay.
Ones that align with our values and aspirations.
So it's about actively shaping our inner landscape,
Yes.
creating a more fertile ground for positive change.
Precisely. It's a process of continuous self-discovery and refinement. Now, we mentioned earlier that Krishnamurti believed this kind of inner transformation could lead to a more peaceful world.
Right.
But how did he actually envision that happening? Did he have like a specific plan or strategy in mind?
That's what I'm curious about. Was he talking about political revolution or something more personal?
He didn't believe in grand utopian schemes or political revolutions.
Okay.
He felt that lasting change could only come from a fundamental shift in human consciousness.
So it's about individuals waking up to their true nature,
Yes.
their interconnectedness with all things.
Exactly. He often spoke about the need for what he called a psychological revolution,
Okay.
where individuals break free from the conditioning of fear, greed, and self-centeredness.
A psychological revolution?
Yeah.
It sounds almost utopian, but also incredibly urgent given the state of the world today.
It does.
So how would this revolution actually play out?
Well, he believed that even a small group of individuals undergoing this transformation could have a profound impact on the world.
That's a hopeful thought.
It is.
It's a reminder that each of us has the potential to contribute to a more peaceful and just society.
Yes.
Not through grand gestures,
Right.
but through our own inner work.
Exactly. He saw these individuals as living examples, inspiring others through their actions and their way of being in the world.
So it's about embodying those values of compassion, understanding, and nonviolence in our everyday lives.
Yes. And as more people awaken to their true nature, that ripple effect spreads, creating a powerful force for positive change.
It's a beautiful vision.
It is, isn't it?
It makes you wonder, what would a world transformed by this kind of psychological revolution actually look like?
It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
Yeah.
A world where conflict is resolved through dialogue and understanding, where cooperation trumps competition,
Yeah.
and where diversity is celebrated.
A world where we care for the planet and all its inhabitants as an extension of ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful vision and one that feels both urgent and possible.
Krishnamurti's teachings offer a roadmap for navigating these turbulent times,
Yeah.
reminding us that the power to create a better world lies within each of us.
It all starts with that inner journey, with cultivating awareness, compassion, and the courage to break free from those limiting beliefs.
It's a lifelong process of self-discovery and transformation, but one that's ultimately worth striving for. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive,
Right.
exploring Krishnamurti's unique perspectives on fear consciousness and the potential for a psychological revolution.
Yeah.
But there's still so much to unpack.
There is.
Join us in part 3,
Okay.
where we'll continue exploring these profound ideas and discuss what they mean for us today.
All right. So welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Krishnamurti.
Glad to be back.
Me too.
It's been quite a journey exploring his ideas.
Yeah. And, we've talked about fear and consciousness and this potential for a psychological revolution.
Right.
But today, I'm really curious to kind of explore the practical side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do we actually take these profound concepts and apply them to our everyday lives?
Right, because what's the point of all this knowledge if it doesn't actually translate into a more fulfilling and meaningful existence?
Exactly. So what are some concrete things that we can actually do starting today
Okay.
to integrate Krishnamurti's teachings into our lives?
Well, one of his core principles was this idea of self-observation.
Okay.
He encouraged us to pay really close attention to our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors.
So almost like becoming a scientist of our own inner world.
Yeah.
Just observing those patterns without getting swept away by them.
That's a great way to put it, because that detached awareness is really crucial
Yeah.
for breaking free from those automatic reactions that often cause us suffering.
It reminds me of mindfulness practices.
Very much so.
Bringing that same kind of non-judgmental awareness to our present moment experience,
Yeah.
is that kind of what he was getting at?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And as we observe ourselves, we might start to notice those recurring thought patterns that keep us stuck,
Uh-huh.
whether it's in fear or negativity, self-doubt.
Oh, I know those patterns all too well.
We all do.
It's like those mental grooves
Yeah.
that we fall into, just replaying the same anxieties and limiting beliefs over and over again.
And once we become aware of those patterns, then we can start to question them.
Yeah.
Like, are these thoughts really serving us?
Right.
Are they based in reality, or are they just echoes of past conditioning?
That's a powerful question
It is.
to ask yourself.
Because we're challenging those assumptions that might be holding us back from living a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Exactly. And another area where his teachings, I think, can have a profound impact is in our relationships.
Absolutely.
He saw relationships as this mirror
Yes.
for self-discovery.
It's like those interactions with others can reveal blind spots that we might not be able to see on our own.
Totally. And he encouraged us to approach those relationships with honesty and vulnerability,
Yes.
seeing them as opportunities for growth and understanding.
So really going deeper than those superficial interactions.
Yes, engaging on a more authentic level.
That's the key. He also challenged us to question our motives in those relationships. Are we seeking validation, control, or are we genuinely open to connection and learning?
That's such an important question
It is.
to ask ourselves.
And it's about cultivating those qualities of empathy and compassion,
Yeah.
seeing others as fellow travelers on this journey of life.
And you know, those same qualities, that sense of interconnectedness, should also extend, I think, to our relationship with the world around us.
Absolutely.
He was a strong advocate for environmental awareness and social justice.
Yes, he didn't see those issues as separate from our inner state.
Right.
He saw them as deeply intertwined.
Yeah.
Like if we're consumed by greed and self-centeredness and lack of awareness, it's bound to manifest in how we treat the planet and each other.
It's recognizing that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of all beings.
Exactly. He challenged us to live a life of simplicity, nonviolence, making choices that align with our values, and considering the impact of our actions on the world around us.
You know, one of the most challenging aspects of his teachings, I think, at least for me,
Yeah.
is this emphasis on the need for a psychological revolution.
Okay.
What did he actually mean by that?
Right.
Because I know he wasn't advocating for violent uprisings.
No, not at all. He believed that true revolution begins within each individual.
Okay.
It's about breaking free from those limiting beliefs and patterns of behavior.
So an internal revolution?
Yes, a shift in consciousness.
Okay.
He saw this transformation as a radical shift in our values and priorities.
Right.
A move away from fear, greed, self-centeredness towards love, compassion, and a deep sense of interconnectedness.
It sounds idealistic, but it also feels incredibly urgent given the state of the world today.
It does.
Did he believe that this revolution was actually possible?
He did. He believed that even a small group of individuals undergoing this transformation could create this ripple effect, inspiring others to follow suit.
It's a hopeful thought.
It is.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we each have the power to make a difference.
Yes.
You know, our choices matter.
They do.
Our actions, no matter how small, can contribute to creating a more just and peaceful world.
That's the essence of his message. It all starts with that inner work.
Yeah.
That commitment to self-awareness, compassion, and living in alignment with our values.
It's a lifelong journey,
It is.
but one that's ultimately worth taking.
Absolutely.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
Exploring Krishnamurti's unique perspective on fear-consciousness relationships and the potential for a psychological revolution.
It's been a privilege to delve into his work with you.
Thank you.
His teachings offer a timeless wisdom that I think can guide us towards a more awakened and compassionate way of being.
I couldn't agree more. So thank you for joining us on this exploration into the world of J. Krishnamurti. We encourage you to continue exploring his ideas and see how they resonate with your own experiences. Until next time, keep diving deep.